Peter Greenberg's live global travel update is presented to you by Colette. Discover the world. Guided travel since 1918.
呢個係將軍澳線嘅尾站，多謝乘搭港鐵。北角，这是将军澳线的终点站，谢谢乘搭港铁。North Point, end of the Chungkwano line. Thank you for travelling on the MTR.
Thank you for traveling on the MTR. Absolutely. Well, greetings, everybody, for this week's Global Travel Update. It's noon in New York. It's midnight here where I am in Hong Kong at the Four Seasons Hotel, just celebrating its 20th anniversary with sweeping views of the Victoria Harbor and, of course, the peak on the other side. Imagine a hotel with 8 Michelin stars under one roof, and that's just for the restaurants. A great place to be. And thank you for joining us. We have so much to cover tonight. And I'll start, before we get into anybody's questions, with the latest on the fallout from the travel, tariff, and trade wars. And it's not pretty. Last week, I told you about the drop in Canadian travel to the U.S., in foreign travel to the U.S. I have more numbers to share with you. Listen to this. According to the U.S. International Trade Administration, the number of tourists visiting the United States is dropping dramatically. Ireland was down 27%. German tourism decreased by 28%. Spain and Norway both dropped 25%. Switzerland came down 25%. Ready for Denmark? 34%. And of course, Canada was at about 75.6% drop from year over year. We're seeing that now extended into the cruise industry. We're seeing that now with hotel rates. We're talking about international travel. We're also looking at outbound travel from the U.S. dropping, simply because people are a little concerned. For reasons that we've seen those powerful visuals on television of people being detained at borders. A lot of people are saying, I'll go overseas, but I'm afraid they might not let me come in. So a big downturn in travel, and those numbers are forcing airlines to cut their earnings projections by more than a half. And in many cases, they had announced all these new routes. They're either pulling back on them or they're canceling them. United had a new route scheduled to start next month from Los Angeles to Toronto. That plane won't even be operating. Other companies are slashing back routes, or if they're not doing that, they're downsizing the aircraft on those routes. Now, they can't pivot that quickly, which is why airfares on those routes are still very low, historically low on international flights. Now, domestically, that's another story. Even though travel is down, those fares have not come down because as people decide not to fly overseas, they may be deciding to stay home this summer or at least travel within the 48 continental United States. And as a result, it's more expensive to go from New York to Chicago than it may be to go from New York to Rome. It's not at that point yet, but it's heading in that direction. And obviously, we'll be monitoring that in the days and weeks to come. It's a problem, and it's going to continue simply because the perception remains out there that the United States is essentially unwelcoming. And whether that's real or not, it's palpable. We have a lot of foreign students, over 90,000 of them studying in the United States, who aren't traveling anywhere because of their fear of not being able to return home if they go home to see their folks and not being able to get back to the United States. So crazy times, folks. And in the cruise industry, it was only in February that the cruise industry boldly announced, they were on a record pace to set all sorts of booking records. By February of this year, well, that's only 2 months ago, they had already sold 80% of their inventory for 2025, and they began selling even more inventory for 2026. Well, right now we're seeing the intersection of a number of canceled reservations and a drop-off in forward reservations. And so the cruise lines are also quite concerned about this. The good thing about airlines and cruise lines, which doesn't apply to hotels, is they can actually move their assets. They can reposition cruise lines to U.S. domestic ports. That happened after 9/11. It may happen again now. You're seeing a number of cruise lines already announcing they're sailing out of Baltimore or Galveston or Mobile or even Charleston. And there's a reason for that. They want to be drive-to destinations where anybody can just drive to the port to get on the ship and not fly over a body of water and essentially leave the U.S. But if you're on a cruise, you're leaving the U.S. in many cases as well, but the fear isn't as high in that regard, especially for Caribbean countries. Now, adding all to that, speaking of Caribbean countries, there's still a proposal that leaked out, has not been implemented yet by the Trump administration, that is essentially going to, if it goes into effect, ban travel for citizens of 43 separate countries coming to the United States. Now, some of the countries on that list, assuming it holds, are not going to be a surprise to you. Yemen, right? Libya. But wait a minute. St. Lucia, Barbuda, Antigua? Are you kidding? What did they do? And nobody's got an answer yet because the Trump administration hasn't talked about it in detail. Now, I mentioned Canadian travel dropping. Even cross-border travel by car is now down 30% between Canada and the U.S. I just flew into Hong Kong 4 days ago from Vancouver on Air Canada, did the nonstop. And of course, at the airport in Vancouver, I couldn't help but notice the hottest selling item in the gift shop. And of course, I had to buy it. I'll show it to you. The hat. No, I'm not wearing it, but I collected it. There you have it. And they had T-shirts for sale with the exact same message. So better or for worse, the Trump decisions have done in Canada what no other country has ever been able to do. They've united Canada. All the provinces are together on this. So those numbers are not going to be going up anytime soon, at least the way I see it. All right. That's the first thing. The second thing is government advisories. You know, I mentioned that the Denmark travel was down, 34%? Denmark is one of 4 countries that their version of their State Department has issued travel advisories or warnings to their citizens about coming to the United States. When was the last time you heard that? We always talk about U.S. State Department advisories about us going overseas. But now, beware of the law of reciprocity, it's kicking in. United Kingdom, Finland, Denmark, and Germany issuing those warnings. So it's all a big mess leading to a possible perfect storm just in time for summer. Okay, a couple of little notes I wanted to talk about. Speaking of Finland, here's some good news. The annual happiness reports are in. Which is the happiest country in the world? No, it's not Disneyland. It's Finland. By the way, for the 8th year in a row, they've been followed by Denmark, Iceland, and Sweden. Scandinavian countries doing very well in this. And also in the top 20 happy countries, Norway, Mexico, Australia, and New Zealand. What about the U.S.? Not so good. We earned its lowest ranking yet since the survey started. We're dropping down to number 24. And in case you're wondering what the least happy countries are, there'll be no surprises there. Afghanistan, Sierra Leone, and Lebanon. Now, for the moment, there's still a lot of new routes being announced in some pretty cool routes that I like. Norse is actually flying a marathon nonstop this summer from Los Angeles to Athens. They're also going Los Angeles to Rome. I'm actually on a flight in about a week going to Rome as well on Norse. But the other interesting thing, they're everywhere now. Lufthansa is flying flights now into other gateway cities in the U.S. We're seeing Delta Airlines tripling down on their European service. Maybe not at such a great time, simply because their numbers are so down. But they're going to go to places like Sicily and other parts of Italy, secondary and tertiary cities nonstop from the U.S. And of course, United now becoming the largest international airline in the world, adding so many new routes ranging from Mongolia to Dakar in Senegal to Morocco. I mean, it's wild. Let's see if it holds up, because I'm all in favor of as many new routes as we can get, which opens the world up to us in ways that it wasn't open before. Remember, these are all nonstop flights we're talking about, nothing where you have to change planes. And that's a big deal. One other important housekeeping note, I've mentioned this before on previous shows. I'm going to mention it again, because a week from tomorrow, the 17th, It's the 50th anniversary of an incredible, amazing story of tragedy and resilience and hope, a story that I covered as Vietnam fell back in April 1975. It's the 50th anniversary of Operation Baby Lift. We're having a very special evening at the Pan Am Museum in New York. For those of you who don't know the story, I'll give it to you in as much of a capsule as I can. In April of 1975, as Vietnam was about to collapse and the Viet Cong were coming in, it was discovered there were a few hundred Vietnamese orphans ranging in age from, let's say, 6 months to 2 years, who had been previously adopted out to U.S. parents, but they were stuck in Saigon. They had to get them out. And so the Ford administration basically launched Operation Baby Lift. And it was an operation of hope and redemption. It was an operation of humanity. And then something went terribly wrong. The plane that they sent to take those kids out was the most inappropriate plane they could have sent. It was part of a lobbying effort by Lockheed to send a plane that was never designed for that mission, the massive large cargo plane, the C-5A. I'm not going to tell you anything other than at 10,000 feet with all those kids on board, the rear cargo door of that plane, it's a massive cargo door, blew out. That plane ended up crashing into a rice paddy at 300 miles an hour. A number of those kids survived. A lot of them actually did, thanks to the heroic efforts of the command pilot, who had nothing at his disposal except throttle. He lost all controls. He had no flaps. He had no gear. He had no rudder. He had nothing except throttle, and he got that plane on the ground. It wasn't pretty, but he did. And then Pan Am kicked in because they had the last flights out of Vietnam. You may remember the movie back in 1990 starring James Earl Jones called, appropriately, Last Flight Out. And the Pan Am station chief, Al Topping, made sure those kids all got home. But that's when the story actually starts. And that's the story that I did for ABC News. I got a chance to co-produce it with my good friend Glenn Silber, who I went to college with in Wisconsin, along with the legendary Danny Schechter. And believe it or not, that episode of 2020 won the Emmy for Best Investigative Reporting by a Television Network. And it was called, appropriately, What Happened to the Children? Well, on April 24th, a week from tomorrow, guess what? We're going to find out, because we're having a reunion. And I cannot begin to tell you how many of those adopted children are coming back to the museum the night of the 24th. It all benefits a great cause, all the work that Pan Am and the Pan Am Foundation does. I'll be speaking that night along with some other amazing speakers and survivors. And I hope you'll get a chance to join. The information is on our screen right now. We'll also publish, it's on our screen right now, the links that you can go to learn more about it. And I hope you will. Let's scroll down and say hello to a few people while I got you. I'm going to scroll right now. Let's go back to the top here. And of course, it's Harriet and Jim in Richmond. They always want to be number one, and they are again today. Matthew saying hi from Syracuse. Sid saying hello, hey, not too far from me, in Singapore. Okay. Tisha saying hello from bright and sunny Holly Springs, Georgia. Flowers are in full bloom here this week. We love it. Sue saying hi from Leavenworth. That's in Washington, by the way. Tayo's in Maryland today. Lorena's saying, well, always from Lansing, Michigan. Nice to see you. I've been checking flights to Nairobi since you had mentioned international flights being low. The prices I'm seeing are the highest prices ever, and I've been checking the past 2 months. I'll tell you why. Nairobi has always been outrageously expensive. I'm talking about flights to Europe. I'm talking about flights to Asia. I'm talking about flights to South America. The reason why Nairobi flights are so high is because it's not necessarily just a leisure market. It's a business market with limited capacity. So if you want a great cheap flight to Nairobi, here's what you do, Lorena. You check out something called an RTW ticket. It stands for Round the World. Every major airline, every major U.S. airline, meaning American, United, Delta, offers it. And they offer it in conjunction with their strategic partners, either One World, Star, or SkyTeam. They even have a separate desk. If you call their 800 number, you'll find the RTW desk. And here's how it works. Again, it stands for Round the World. The requirements are you have to just continue in one direction. You can't double back. You can either complete your trip in 6 months or 1 year. They have two different increments for that. And the airfare that you're going to pay is more than likely less than you're paying for a round trip ticket to Nairobi. And you're accruing miles you can never redeem, but that's another subject. Check it out. It makes a lot of sense, and it gives you more options than you thought you had. Even if you're only going to add 1 or 2 more flights in your round-the-world itinerary, it still makes sense if you've got the time. So please check that out. All right. Greetings from Devon, New Jersey. Colleen is saying hello from sunny Paris. We are so lucky sun is not always guaranteed in April. I'll take Paris in the rain before a lot of places in the sun any day of the week. Okay. Mike Lucan says, tariff schmariff. Well, not so fast. The implications are huge. You know what they just did today in Hong Kong? The Chinese government ruled they're stopping all postal service to the United States in retaliation for the tariffs. I mean, it's getting silly and nasty and stupid. I'm going to mail a postcard tomorrow to myself to see how long it takes to get there. Julie's saying, given the low international airfare, should I purchase tickets to Mexico for Christmas 2025 now? Okay. When you're purchasing tickets for Thanksgiving or Christmas, or in the United States for, let's say, Memorial Day coming up or July 4th, or, you know, those are not surprise dates, and they're priced accordingly. Christmas is high season in Mexico. So if you want to buy those tickets, my advice is yes, buy them now. Robert's saying, thanks for visiting and showing Uganda to the world. That's right. Hidden Uganda, our latest global television special, is airing on PBS, Amazon, Apple TV, and next month on YouTube as well. So as we like to say, check your local listings. All right, here we go. Nancy's saying, hello from Lucerne, Switzerland. The best Italian food I've ever had in my life was in Lucerne, Switzerland. I hope you're getting a chance to get out on the lake and take one of the old steamer ships that stop in every little town along the way. Give yourself time to do that trip. It is absolutely worth it. Tayo says, is it true that many airports are planning to do away with the physical boarding pass and passport entirely and will switch to scanning biometric data? If so, how can we opt out of this? The answer is a lot of plans are in place to do that. It's not going to happen right away. The systems are not in place. The hardware is not in place. And the training is not in place. We're seeing interim stuff with biometric data at security checkpoints like TSA and Clear. And we're also seeing that biometric data in place in some of the e-gates that we're seeing now at Heathrow and Gatwick, in Dubai, in Doha, and some other locations. But right now, we even had it here in Hong Kong too, but it's not widespread yet. So don't count on it happening anytime in the next 2 years, but it is on the way. Just like they're going to stop stamping passports in the European Union, I believe, at the end of next month. So get ready for that. All right, Charlie saying hi. Any thoughts on how long you think international travel to the U.S. will drop? Yeah, I do. Remember, when people make a travel decision not to go somewhere, they don't wake up a week later and go, okay, I'll go now. No, they make other plans. So, Charlie, the bad news is inbound tourism to the United States, down, as you can see, in some cases almost 40%, is going to stay that way for a while. People are not moving swiftly to change their mind. They will travel within Europe before they travel here, right? And we will probably travel within the United States before we go over there. Now, the smart travelers, of course, that's everybody watching me now, can take advantage of this buyer's market, especially if you're going to Europe or Asia, and buy those tickets before the airlines pivot and adjust their capacity or downsize their aircraft. But the answer to your question, Charlie, is sadly, I'm not seeing this changing anytime soon. This is not like a bounce back in the stock market. No, this is people saying, you know what? I'm not going to go this year. They're saying the words this year, and it's only what? April. So you understand what I'm saying. Joy's saying, what place have you traveled to that you would not return and why? Camden, no, kidding. I'm kidding, New Jersey folks. The answer is honestly, zero. Because every time I travel somewhere, I'm reminded how much I haven't seen. And I want to go back. Now, the circumstances may always not be appealing at a certain time. Like right now, I'm not going to Russia. Right now, I'm not going to Sierra Leone. Right now, I'm not going to go to Chechnya. I'm not going to go to Syria. Right? I mean, but that doesn't mean I won't go. And it doesn't mean I haven't gone before. I want to go back. right? Everything. Look, I've been to the Sudan a number of times, and it's what a fascinating country, right? But right now, between what's going on in Sudan and South Sudan, right? Now I'd go to South Sudan, not necessarily Sudan, until they figure it out. But the real answer to your question, and I'm not trying to be glib, is it really is zero. It's just all about timing and making sure that the metric that you use to determine where you want to go is realistic, and also not just realistic until to the situation there, but realistic to your own physical abilities and your own politics and your own sense of values. But I would never rule out any place. I mean, as long as I knew who's in control, and if my personal safety was not in threat, and then off we go. Okay. Sue says, I was waiting for somebody to bring this up. Sue says, American Airlines is getting free Wi-Fi next year. Well, you know what? American Airlines has been bringing up the rear for so long in this, and they're the most expensive Wi-Fi operators now in business. Look, Delta Airlines, 2 years ago now, offered free Wi-Fi to anybody who's a member of their SkyMiles team or program, and it works beautifully, right? United's putting Starlink on their planes, and they're rolling it out as free. A number of foreign carriers are doing that as well. JetBlue's had it since day one, right? And here's American charging people, anywhere from $20 to $40 every time you log on. You know what? At a certain point, it's like the days when they used to charge you. How many people remember when you were staying in a foreign hotel, the cost of a local phone call? Or even if you used your phone credit card, they'd charge you £3.50 to make a call on that credit card before they charge you for the call. Well, that didn't last very long. Why? We got cell phones. Bye-bye. And that was no longer a profit center at the hotel. Well, American Airlines has finally come to realize they've lost the competitive edge in the Wi-Fi wars, and they're now going to bring it up. But I got to give you a caveat on that as well. Right now, Americans using 2 to 3 separate Wi-Fi services based on the planes they're operating. So what does that mean? It'll be free on some planes and not on others. It's a mess. So yes, Sue, they're saying they're going to get free Wi-Fi next year, but it's going to be really based on the plane you're flying. And the planes you really want to fly, especially on long-haul flights, may not have it. So we'll follow that as well. Okay. Paul says, I remember back in the 70s where Lebanon was the jewel of the Eastern Mediterranean. The war created a disaster for that country. But would I go back to Lebanon today? I would. I never had a better time than I've had when I've gone to Lebanon. It really was the Paris of the Middle East. It still is, in my opinion. The people are amazing. The food is beyond belief. The wine is amazing. And for those people who like this, so is the skiing. Go to Byblos, probably the oldest harbor in the world. Beirut, just unbelievable. And I was there when the Syrian army was there with Hezbollah, and I didn't feel unsafe at all. And my last name is Greenberg. In fact, I remember going to the old Commodore Hotel, the only hotel at that point that had never been bombed, because that's where all the journalists hung out, and having coffee with the head of Hezbollah and having a reasonably intelligent conversation. Now, that's what it's all about. Let's hope we can all get to the point, wherever we travel, of having reasonably intelligent conversations. It'll go a long way to opening up more borders. But by the way, would I go to Israel right now? I would. Would I go to Syria right now? No, not yet, but it's coming. Lebanon? Yes, I would. Egypt? Yes. Saudi? Yes. And so on and so forth. Okay, moving right along. Gene saying hi. Evelyn saying greetings from snowy Syracuse, New York in April. Here we go. Cross-country skiing in April in Syracuse. Anna saying hi from Tampa. Randy saying, hey, hello from Ann Arbor. My arch enemy because of the University of Wisconsin, but we still love you. Camilla's saying as well. She always says hi from Tucson. Gene says, what's the longest cruise I've ever taken? I can tell you. It was 2018 on Silver Sea. I believe I did 19 days in the Antarctic. Because once you get down there, you're down there. And life-changing, by the way, unforgettable. Make sure if you're going down to the Antarctic and you get a chance to go, don't just go on a cruise ship, go on an expedition cruise ship where you actually get a chance to work with researchers and scientists and get ashore, and they can provide the most needed perspective on what you're seeing. And it's all about context. So that's the answer, 18 days. Now, there are other cruises I would love to take, otherwise known as, so many of you know these, repositioning cruises, where the companies literally have to move the ships to different times, parts of the world for different seasons. There was one cruise last year from the Mediterranean to Galveston, I believe it was on Carnival, it was 47 days. And if you did the average of what they were charging for a cabin, I think it was $63 a night, including your meals. You can't wake up in Topeka for $63 a day. And based on the Wi-Fi capabilities of many of these ships, and of course, we're in an era where we're working from anywhere, think about how productive you can be, because those aren't cruises. Those are crossings with a number of limited stops. So you're having 3 and 4 and 5 days at sea. It really focuses you. I've never been more creative than I've had 4 or 5 days in a row at sea. Try it sometime. All right. Patrick Cooney saying hi. Jeff saying hello from the birthplace of beach volleyball, where we won't be hosting the 28 Olympics. All right. All right. How safe do I think those helicopter rides are? And we're in New York City. Okay. Let's get into that. I didn't talk about it at the top of the show, but the NTSB, of course, is investigating the tragic and fatal. Basically, it came apart. This Bell helicopter over the Hudson River on a sightseeing tour, a family of 5 tragically killed. We did see the video there. The problem with sightseeing helicopters is the FAA again. They allow these helicopters to operate under a different FAR rule, Federal Aviation rules, that need to be more restrictive. Back in 2018, we had a number of tragic and fatal disasters with helicopters on sightseeing tours in Hawaii. The FAA was forced to come in, put in altitude caps, require instantaneous weather reporting stations, because it's so easily for fog and other weather to kick in and pilots can become spatially disoriented. But in the process of investigating those crashes, they found pilots who weren't certified. But wait a minute, who certified them? Some guy at the FAA who shouldn't have done it either. So once again, it's back to staffing and training. And in this particular case, this was not pilot error, that to the best of my knowledge. This was a severe and fatal structural failure where the rotors were detached from the plane. And then in that video, you see them spinning freely in the air and the helicopter becoming, sadly, a very heavy brick with no options for the pilot. Very sad. But the NTSB will investigate. My hope is that sightseeing tours will continue with helicopters, but under much more restriction and oversight by the FAA. Okay. Yes. Okay. You're making me do this. Jim and Harriet want to know. I was hoping I wasn't going to talk about this tonight, but you opened it. If you were asked to go into space, would you? Okay. Space, yes. Space adjacent, give me a break. What we just saw 3 days ago or 2 days ago was a very expensive joyride. The people on that capsule were not astronauts. They were passengers on an expensive joyride for 11 minutes, during which they were weightless for 4. No science was achieved here. No lessons were learned that could be applied to our life or the way we travel. And given the context of everything else that's going on in the world, you know what? I got a problem with that. By the way, if you take a look at the trajectory of that spacecraft with everybody on board, and you go back to like 1958, the monkey at Sputnik had a better deal, right? So let's not kid ourselves. If somebody said to me, do you want to go into space? That's the one thing, by the way, that they asked Walter Cronkite, and it's the one thing he never got a chance to do. He wanted to go into space. He wanted to go to the moon, and he never got a chance to do it. I'd do it in a heartbeat, but not to go to space adjacent. If you just want to achieve weightlessness and see the curvature of the Earth, you can do that on the Vomit Comet for about $5,000, not $600,000. It's a specially equipped, all padded cabin 727 that goes into a parabolic dive. And guess what? You are weightless. And listen, on these other expeditions, so to speak, people pay a lot of money, right? And you know what? They go through training. Would you like to know what the training is? Fasten your seatbelt. And then you know what they get to do at the end of it? Somebody puts a pin on them saying you're an astronaut. That's an insult to astronauts. And the second thing that happens is they get to keep the uniform. So they get to go to Halloween next year. Okay, I'm done talking about that. I hope I'm clear. Let's move on. Alexander reminded me that the Chinese halted all Boeing new aircraft orders. That's significant. And as these trade and tariff wars continue, what China did was it halted all new orders and firm orders and options on Boeing aircraft to all of their airlines in China. I'm going to tell you the numbers. You know how many planes that means? That's 179 Boeing aircraft. That is a huge revenue hit to Boeing. By the way, Boeing is still America's largest export company, but that's a hit you don't recover from. And what did Delta do 4 days ago? They suspended or canceled all their orders from Airbus for their A350 aircraft. These are great wide bodies that Delta was going to use to basically replace the aging 767s in their fleet, some of which are 33 years old, right? Those planes aren't coming over. What does that mean? They're going to continue flying the older planes. They're not unsafe, but they're just not great. And they may have to cancel a lot of routes that they announced that they only wanted to fly with the A350. So now you have a standoff across the Atlantic. You have a standoff across the Pacific. And we're talking billions and billions of dollars. So there you go. All right, Willie's saying, hello from Denver. I hope you enjoyed your time on the MSC World America. Yeah, I did. We actually broadcast from there. We taped the show that'll be airing soon. This is a ship that if it was fully loaded, and it now is, we went on a very short inaugural cruise. But if it's fully loaded, if you add passengers to crew, you're nearly 9,000 people. But the way they designed this ship, you never feel crowded. Now, my preference is not necessarily for the big ships, but you got to hand it to them because what they've done, and Royal Caribbean's done this, of course, with Icon of the Seas and their other big ships. It's not a matter of where the ships are going. It's a matter of designing the ships to become their destination in themselves. And when you talk to people who come off the Icon of the Seas or the MSC World America and ask them where they went on the cruise, 9 out of 10 will tell you what they did on the ship. That'll give you an idea of all the things that are there for you when you're on that ship. Okay. Patricia says, afraid how all what Trump is doing will affect our media business. Well, right now, the early indications are it will. People are holding back. They're holding back budgets. They're holding back commitments, not just for meetings, just for regular business travel. People are holding back. And until, until they figure out that whatever decisions are made are going to stick and not roller coaster, everybody's staying put. Willie also says, I found some deals and some repositioning cruises from LA to Vancouver in the next few weeks. I'm deciding between a few. Peter, have you been to Astoria, Oregon? And would you recommend? I do. Astoria, Oregon is a wonderful town on the coast. And if you can do a repositioning cruise from LA to Vancouver, and by the way, you know why they're doing that? Because the Alaska cruise season is starting. It's starting next month. And of course, thanks to the Jones Act, no cruise ship, unless it's registered in the U.S., can sail between any two ports without stopping in a foreign port first. That's why so many Alaskan cruises start in Vancouver before getting to Alaska, right? And in the southern part, every year when the Queen Mary II does its around the world cruise, it stops in Los Angeles. Its next stop is supposed to be Hawaii. They don't do that. Can't do that. So their next stop for the Queen Mary II is Ensenada, just long enough to say they were in a foreign country before sailing across the Pacific. It's a ridiculous act. It needs to be repealed for so many other reasons. But in any case, if you got that repositioning cruise from LA to Vancouver, take it. You'll be happy you did. Okay, Red's watching from Omaha. Fly Now, Pay Later is in full swing. Yes, Fly Now, Pay Later. Guys, the layaway plan is not your friend. We're dealing with interest on credit cards. That's 26% on average, compounded. Consumer credit card debt right now in this country is about $1.6 billion, and only 52% of us pay our bills in full every month. The other 48% can't catch up ever. So why would you do this? Now, there are a couple of services that offer you simple interest, not compounded interest. But again, they're going to check your credit report, and that goes on as a hard query on your credit report, which may take your credit rating down. Just remember that. Okay, here's one from Elizabeth. I'm calling from Brooklyn. Okay, Brooklyn, how you doing? Elizabeth says, do you think it's safe to go to Israel now? I do, and I'd go tomorrow. I said that earlier. Okay, Diane says, going to Tokyo in October. Any suggestions on restaurants and events I shouldn't miss? Well, are you just going to Tokyo, or are you going to other places in Japan? Email me, peter@petergreenberg.com, and I'll give you a much more detailed answer, because we seem to be running out of time right now. But first of all, before we do that, it's time to go to the photo of the week. I love this one. Check this out. This is just taken last week, folks, in Fairbanks, Alaska. Congratulations to Gwen Strutzenberg. And she writes, the Aurora Borealis near Fairbanks last week. The lights danced for 4 hours in an ever-changing spectacular display. And by the way, she took that picture, we love this, with an iPhone. Congratulations, Gwen. By the way, if you think you have a photo that qualifies as the photo of the week, you know exactly what to do. Just email me, photocontest@petergreenberg.com. And if we agree that it looks like Gwen's and has the same high quality, doesn't have to be shot with an iPhone, it'll hang right up there next week along with Gwen. So we really are looking forward to that. One more little housekeeping note. Season 10 of The Travel Detective is premiering, and we have a little teaser for you right now. This week on The Travel Detective, it's the second largest city in Canada, a UNESCO city of design with an indelible French flair. It's also my choice of where to go in the off-season, especially in winter. Let me share with you some of my hidden gems of Montreal. Plus, the cost of flying is really taking off at some airports across the country. I'll tell you which ones are the most expensive to fly from. And then, a sweet treat. We share some of North America's best chocolate with both great taste and unusual stories. I'm Peter Greenberg. All this and more on the next edition of The Travel Detective on PBS. Check your local listing. And a big shout out to the folks at St. Viateur Bagels in Montreal. They do have the best bagels in the world. And of course, I'm not a meat eater, but boy, was I salivating at Schwartz's Deli. You know, my favorite sandwich when I used to eat meat was the hot pastrami and Swiss on rye with Russian dressing. You go to Schwartz's Deli in Montreal, they don't call it pastrami, they call it smoked meat, and the sandwich is this big. And by the way, the silent partner of that store, but nobody knows it, but now you do, is Celine Dion. She never shows up, but she keeps it going, and you got to check it out. There's always a line out there. So either go early in the morning and have your sandwich early, or try to go later in the afternoon when there's a lull. But I'm telling you, worth both places in Montreal, just for starters, and you'll see that on our show, Travel Detective Season 10. Check your local listings, PBS, Amazon, and Apple TV. Okay. Again, one other reminder, next week on the 24th, the 50th anniversary of Operation Baby Lift, the most unusual reunion I've ever attended, the most unusual stories you will ever hear, and the people who live them will be telling them. So I hope you'll get a chance, if you're in the New York area, to join us. The information's on our website. I hope you'll check that out. It's all for a good cause. In the meantime, it's now almost 20 minutes till 1 in the morning here in Hong Kong. I think I'm going to go to bed, maybe. But in the meantime, have a great rest of the week, everybody. I will see you next week. First, of course, on the radio this Saturday, on of course, Ion Travel, our CBS radio show. And then next week for another edition of Global Travel Update. Thanks to Anthony Protis for doing the boards here in Hong Kong, and of course, the entire staff of the Four Seasons here in Hong Kong for allowing us to borrow one of their rooms to be able to talk to you at this late hour. I'll see you next week, everybody, and have a great rest of the week.
请所有乘客落車，請所有乘客下車。Please exit from the train.
Peter Greenberg's live global travel update is presented to you by Colette. Discover the world. Guided travel since 1918.